Foreign dignitaries have been visiting New Zealand to speak with their citizens who survived the attacks and to express their condolences. And while many leaders around the world have spoken of their support for New Zealand, controversially, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has not only used footage uploaded by the accused gunmen in campaign rallies, but he has also threatened to send New Zealanders and Australians who come to his country with anti-Islam sentiment back home in a casket. Foreign Minister Winston Peters was expected to land in Istanbul a short time ago, where he's flown in to effectively set the record straight. But one visiting royal, Prince Al Hassan bin Talal of Jordan, says populism and extremism is not characteristic of New Zealand. He sat down with political reporter Craig McCulloch in Wellington this afternoon.
1 week on, I guess, from this tragedy, what's your message to New Zealand as you arrive here?
The world has to take heed of what has happened in New Zealand, and the concept of a global democratic association of people, citizens' assembly, is so important today, because with strong powers and smaller powers in the world, it is simply impossible not to take heed of the goodness of the Kota Hitana of New Zealanders, their solidarity and their oneness. And I think that a world at war with itself can only find serenity in the example of the compassion and the love that New Zealanders have shown to the other.
How did news of this attack reverberate in Jordan?
Well, New Zealand is a utopia for many people who leave because of war, strife, unfair treatment in their home countries, and of course we are a cosmopolitan country. And I think the feeling was one of dullness and anguish, that even in a country so far away, in this beautiful paradise, that evil should pervade. And it was a feeling again of anger, that once again co-believers should be targeted. But at the same time, I think after the visit of the Pope to Abu Dhabi and the meeting with the leader of the Azhar, the Muslim Christian continuing conversation with which I've been involved for decades, they were talking about our shared humanity. Whether you believe or not, don't believe, the main thing is to stand up for human values and human dignity. And that was, I think, the general reaction, a very mature reaction, but a very sad one, particularly for the families of the bereaved who've flown out.
You talked of some anger. You will have seen in Turkey, President Erdogan, strong words from him, what many have seen as a rebuke of Australia and New Zealand. Was that helpful? Well,
in Jordan, we commemorate the Anzac Day victims. We also commemorate the Turkish soldiers fallen, so as in the spirit of Gallipoli, we shall continue to do that. And I don't want to say anything more about current politics. All I do know is that populism and extremism is not characteristic of New Zealand, and I think that that should shine through. I hope you will not be caught in a trap of the war of words that is a war of polarity, of hatred. I hope you will live up always to conviviality, of compassion and respect for the other.
And you've accused gunmen, of course, as Australian. The government's made a point of pointing that out, of making clear that he's not a New Zealander. But does New Zealand bear any responsibility for this sort of action?
Well, I think that there is no fallible security in the world. The only fallible security is to acknowledge the fact that we are all living in a vulnerability-based approach. There is no such thing as a status-based approach. You are not safe just because you're a state. People make up that state. And proximity, of course, of Australia is something that you are more familiar with than I am. But I think that people who rise above culture and the intimacy of culture are creating their own cocoon, and would be very difficult to trace in a situation like the tragedy that we are all grieving over.
New Zealand's acted quickly. The Prime Minister yesterday announcing a ban imminently on military-style semi-automatics and assault rifles. What does New Zealand need to do moving forward to prevent any atrocity like this ever again?
At the international level, New Zealand has a voice and has a voice that could find solidarity with many, many, many countries and peoples. And my hope is that this opportunity would not be wasted in terms of emphasizing that real democracy is democratic security for everyone. Bigger, stronger, weaker, poorer, it doesn't matter. The main thing is to work on the right to respect, as we once worked on the right to protect.
And that was Prince Al Hassan bin Talal of Jordan speaking there to our political reporter Craig McCulloch in Wellington.